welcome back to Tiny Artist TV. Today is day 6 of Aughost and the theme is Hollow. I kind of wanted to break away from the sketchy M. Alice LeGros style for this piece, simply because this was one that was more personal, or ended up being more personal to me, and that this prompt made me think of just the emptiness you feel when you suffer from depression. And actually it's something that my husband and I both have, and so this piece kind of was a way for me to depict what that feels like. Unfortunate for this person, I do end up emptying out the face and the heart and the stomach, and that this person has succumbed to that deep emptiness that you feel. The reason for blocking out the face in this was that not only is this something that can kind of cause you to lose your identity, but I also wanted to play with the idea of that this could be, or could have been, anybody. Could have been you, could have been me. And just the emptiness of the heart and the stomach, that kind of pit that you feel when you feel a deep, remorseful, just grief and emptiness. As far as the human condition is concerned, the idea of the soul, what makes us us, when you lose that, you become just this shell of a person. And so with the idea of hollow, that was immediately what I went to. And here I'm just blocking out the background. I wanted to give it this smoky, ashy, kind of mysterious feel to just push that shell, that empty theme that I was going with. And here I'm using the acrylic textured brush to add some sort of soot snowflakes, and I use the same textured brush to blend out the larger fuzzy dots that you see around. They're supposed to be closer to the camera, closer to the viewer. And it's just this hollow ash falling around this person. I'm using the textured brush to come in to give it a little more unified smudge vortex effect to it. Earlier, I didn't describe what I was doing with this because I had to cut a little bit of it out. With the initial composition, even though the composition itself was the same, I did alter it a little bit. I lassoed it with, or selected it with the lasso tool, and then I scaled it and shaved the bottom, or tapered the bottom, so that it looked like it was coming a little bit more out of the mist, and that this figure wasn't just floating in the middle of the composition and in the middle of space, essentially. So it's a simple way to make really extreme angles, but for this one I just wanted to make it a little more subtle. Something else that went right with this piece was the hands. So on August day 1, I had a little bit of trouble with the hands, but with this one, because it's not a sketch, because it's painting, it's a little easier to get the forms that you want, and you can just immediately play with the colors and the light and make the hands look like what they're supposed to. And for this, I do go back in and sketch out some of the details just so I know where I want to place some of the lights and shadows, and just to kind of solidify where the forms are supposed to be on this figure. Because with the painterly, I use the acrylic brush again to block out the form, and it does get a little bit fuzzy, so I just go back in here. All the lines are going to be gone by the end of the composition, but going in to help me refocus in where I want to place my details, and just kind of help me keep this painterly style without it being a sketch with the paint underneath of it. making sure that everything is lined up properly. And then starting with a little bit of the light, I do go back in again with that acrylic brush. I only end up using 3 brushes for this one. It's the acrylic 2, the acrylic 3, and then the oil paint to block out some of the forms. So I'm using texture to create the highlights here. And then I go back in with a larger acrylic brush to further push that fuzzy light. And then here I'm going in with the airbrush to kind of give it more of that sunken in feeling in the pit itself. Just to make a nice soft gradient between the skin and the holes in the body. And I have my airbrush set to, I usually keep it between 10 and a 25. If I'm really impatient and want to just get some soft shading out, I set it up to 50, but that's the highest I'll go with that. Because usually with a 10, you can get a nice softer gradient. With a 25, it'll give you faster color, but it's still enough that you can control how soft or how dark you want your shading areas to be. Adding in the holes in the face and the heart and the stomach now. I'm realizing at second glance, or I guess third glance now, it's kind of got a Junji Ito vibe to it. If you don't know who Junji Ito is, and you're a fan of horror and or manga, definitely check him out. He's got some crazy psychedelic, like, he's great. He's a master at what he does. This specifically makes me think of, oh, it's not the homunculus because that's by somebody else. I can't think of it, but if you Google it, it's one of the most popular images, this vortex face. I guess I'm subconsciously channeling him doing all of this horror art. Happy early Halloween, y'all. And then here you can see where I'm picking colors to blend in that sketch that I did earlier to kind of make it more painterly, still blocking out the figure so you can see where the division of the body is supposed to be, but it's not so stark. Just adding in more details around the chest and stomach. After I finished this piece, I did immediately have the thought that I want to redo it, but because for August I am basically just doing quick sketches, this one doesn't have as much detail as some of my larger pieces would be, but this is definitely one that I want to revisit and make a little more refined, kind of in maybe a Peter Moorbacher style, as I've done with some of my other ones in the past. I am happy with the soft, ashy, sort of spooky feeling that I do get from this one, but I also know that if I spend more time on it, I can definitely make it better. I will be doing a series where I pick pieces from 2009 to 2017 to redo, so even though this one is from 2019, I might actually include it in the series just as a recent redo. adding in the, I guess, melted viscera. With this one, I knew what element I wanted to add to it. I was actually going to add more of like a waterfall of dark liquid pouring over the hands, but I didn't want to cover up the shading that I'd added to the body, so with this one I just added most of it coming out of the face and just a little bit coming out of the heart and down the hands and out of the stomach, just showing that he's melting away this person that they used to be. Blending them into the background a little bit, giving them a little more of that disintegration type feeling. It was just wasting away and turning into nothing. And just going back in to fix the hand. With that, we are pretty much finished. At this point, I just add the signature and wrap it up. There were a couple of little hiccups along the way because I did recently download the latest version of GIMP, and so there were a couple of new tools and tricks to play with. So it was an interesting process for this one. But the next videos will definitely be a lot smoother. And thank you all for showing up again, and have a weird day.